everybody, welcome back to Podcastage. My name's Banjo and I'm back with another edition of the Versus series. So today I am putting these two mics against each other, the Samson C01u Pro and the Samson C03u. So as far as the build quality, they seem incredibly similar. They're both all metal, and they look like they're actually the same exact body, just with a slightly different top. On the C01u Pro, it does have a headphone port, which allows for zero latency monitoring. But when we look at the C03u, we have a bunch more options. The most notable is it has multiple polar patterns. So it has a bidirectional, a supercardioid, and an omnidirectional setting, as well as a bass roll-off switch and a 10 decibel pad. But let's go ahead and just get right into the tests. Okay, so now I'm speaking into the Samson C01u Pro. This microphone will set you back about $90. It has a hypercardioid or supercardioid polar pattern, and the frequency response is listed at 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Now I'm speaking into the Samson C03u, which will also set you back around $90. As I already mentioned, it does have 3 different polar pattern settings, but we're only going to be using the cardioid setting since we're comparing it against the C01u Pro, which is a cardioid microphone. Also, I am leaving all the other settings off. I am not turning on the 10 decibel pad or the bass roll-off, so this is just the raw audio. And lastly, the frequency response is listed as 20 Hz to 18 kHz, but with multi-pattern microphones, as you switch between the microphone capsules inside with the changing of the polar pattern, it does tend to change the frequency response. Now I am banging on a keyboard directly behind the microphone to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. Now I am banging on a keyboard directly behind the microphone to determine how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. Now I am 1 foot away from the C01u. Now I am 1 foot away from the C03u. Now I am about 2 feet away from the C01u. Now I'm about 2 feet away from the Samson C03u. Now I am about 4 feet away from the Samson C01u Pro. Now I am about 4 feet away from the Samson C03u. Now I'm spinning around the C01u to determine what the actual polar pattern is and how the frequency response changes as we move into different positions around the microphone. Now I'm spinning around the C03u to determine what the actual polar pattern is and how the frequency response changes as we move around the microphone into different positions. And let's just see how it sounds. Okay, you can see that my sound preferences are open and I am currently using the C01u. My input gain is currently set at maybe 18 or 20%. I will go ahead and drop it down to 0 and slowly increase it to 100% so you can hear what the noise floor of the C01u is. Okay, so now you can see that my sound preferences are open. My microphone input gain is currently set at maybe 20%. I will go ahead and drop it down to 0% and slowly increase it so you can hear what kind of background noise and hiss is generated by the Samson C03u. I am really bad at writing songs, so it's strange that I have decided to make some videos that require me to write songs constantly. Ooh. Okay, and the winner of this Versus series goes to the Samson C01u Pro, and as per usual, I'll go ahead and explain myself. So just like most Versus series, this was an incredibly close race. Both of them sounded very similar and had very similar characteristics, so it was very difficult to decide. When we tested out the polar pattern, the performance was pretty much the exact same for both of the microphones. The background noise from the keyboard was relatively similar. As we got farther away from the microphone, it was relatively similar. As we moved around the microphone, it was relatively similar, so we couldn't decide based on that. When we tested the noise that both the microphones generated, they were almost the exact same. I placed the audio directly next to each other, and I really couldn't tell a difference between the two, so we couldn't decide based on the noise floor either. But once we start to look at the frequency response, we started to see the C01 perform slightly better. On the voice tests, I really couldn't tell much of a difference between the two microphones, but once we got into the guitar tests, that's where we started to tell the difference. So with the acoustic, I thought the C01u sounded slightly more natural, and it didn't sound as boomy. Then when we got to the electric guitar, the C03u sounded like the mids of the microphone had just been cranked down in the EQ, and it sounded like really nasty early 80s metal. So I wasn't a big fan of that, and that's really why I decided on the C01u Pro, because of the performance on the guitars. But to be honest, the only reason I'm being so critical between these two microphones is because I have to in order to decide which microphone is best. If you need any sort of multi-pattern USB microphones, if you need an omnidirectional setting or a bidirectional setting, the C03u is a great sounding microphone. You'll be perfectly fine with it, but based on the performance of the cardioid setting, I think if that's what you're going to be using, the C01u Pro is the better option. Alright guys, well that'll do it for today. If you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you thought it sucked, give me a big old thumbs down. If you want more, subscribe by clicking the logo in the corner. If you're interested in either of these microphones, I will link them in the description, and also don't forget to vote for the microphones you want reviewed next, as well as follow me on all the social media stuff. Links to everything is in the video description down below, and I will see you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.